right? Venture capital tends to be a big bottleneck. A lot of people talk about not having money. But in my opinion, money is a commodity. Everybody has some amount of money in their pockets right now. So it's not really a differentiating factor. I think people who say that they don't have access to funding, frankly, in my opinion, in this day and age, are making an excuse. It's not a good enough excuse because I think there's a lot of money that's available. In the context of Pakistan, what I'd like to share with you are some numbers. I think those numbers are going to help us understand where we are in the context of global markets. Okay? So perhaps someone in the audience can answer my question. What is the total market capitalization of Pakistan? Pakistan's public markets, Karachi Stock Exchange, it has about 500 companies. Does anyone know what is the total value of these 500 companies? Please, you can just, sorry? 70 to 75%?
Billion.
Yeah, it's about $80 billion, right? So our country, which has 200 million people, has about 500 companies that are publicly listed. The total value of those companies is $80 billion. Does anyone know what the market cap of Apple computers is?
$500 million.
It's about $580 billion. If you take Apple, Google, Facebook, and Amazon, the total market capitalization of these four companies is $1.8 trillion. And if you add to it four of the largest Chinese listed technology companies, which would be Alibaba, Baidu, Tencent, JD.com, that would be another $650 billion. So collectively, 8 companies in the technology space are worth $2.5 trillion. Okay? Now, let's imagine what $2.5 trillion are. It's 250 followed by 12 zeros in Pak rupees, right? It's an enormous amount of wealth. And if you go back 10, 15 years, this wealth did not exist. It just got created in the last decade. So what's the magic? What is it that keeps us with our population of 200 extremely intelligent people, according to Donald Trump? Why does it keep us behind with only 80 billion, where one company that's listed in the United States in the technology space is worth 5 times that number, right? So I think it's important to contextualize and see why that is important, right? Because if we don't really understand where we are, we won't know where we're going, frankly. So technology is not something that only resides in startups. Technology is inherent in everything that we do today. Basically it's a backbone for anything and everything that we're doing in our lives. So it's embedded itself in our culture, in our society, and I believe that the type of growth we are going to see over the next 2 to 5 years is going to be exponential growth. And I'm sorry to say this, but I think Pakistan is going to be left behind. And the reason behind that is that we've not made the investment in really educating our people and providing them with the educational background to really compete on a global scale. We have a tremendous wastage of talent, right? So the reason why I quote these numbers is because not to intimidate ourselves and to think that it's too difficult. I mean, these companies are very large. How can we ever compete? The reality is, as a nation, we are very competitive, right? I mean, we compete in sports, we compete in a number of different things, but I don't think that sense of urgency and that drive is really there for us to wake up and say, wait a minute, I think we can create something that's going to be $100, $200 billion company tomorrow or 10 years from now. Is it possible? Of course it's possible. But you need to have that imagination. You need to be able to celebrate diversity. You need to be able to encourage people to participate and become part of an ecosystem, part of a movement. One thing I will mention about Silicon Valley, another thing that I forgot to mention earlier, is that Silicon Valley has a culture of giving. Okay? That's really important to understand. That the people that were successful give back. They feel it incumbent upon themselves to be able to help others. Okay? In our society, we help a lot of people around us. But I don't think that the people who have really become successful in our society are really making investments in people like yourselves and saying, you know what, let's give them a chance, let's give them an opportunity. So this culture of giving back to society, which is so inherent in the Silicon Valley ecosystem, unfortunately in our culture, although it exists, it doesn't exist for people to the extent that it should.
That's really nice. I would like to add a few more things. I was having a discussion with Mr. Arshad a few days ago. So we are actually, there's a new superpower on social platforms that Mr. Arshad called FANG. What FANG actually is, we all are under the influence of FANG. FANG is basically Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, and Google. Whatever we do on our social platforms on the internet, that is being influenced by FANG. So FANG is the next superpower, or already a superpower. I guess that's we forgot to mention. Now to talk about entrepreneurship. Mr. Arshad, there is also a common misconception among our startups that entrepreneurship is something starting a business, so that means you are an entrepreneur. And I'm sure definitely entrepreneurship is much more than this. They start a business with some funding, some initial fundings, without even gaining organic traction for it. So my question is, do you think that before going for an investment, organic traction is necessary for any sort of business?
I think the simple answer to that is yes. Right? If you go back 10, 15 years ago, when I was here in Karachi, and I started my startup, we had to go and get space, put up our servers, have connectivity. The cost of starting a business was very high. Now, the cost of starting a business is actually very, very low. You've all heard of Amazon Web Services. You can host your technology or your application globally. You can serve the whole world from hosting your services on the cloud. So the barriers to entry are very low in this environment. But what that does is that also increases the amount of competition, right? Because anyone can basically start a business. I think in terms of startups, not all startups are alike. I think that anyone who starts a business and takes risk is an entrepreneur. But we need to be able to define really the characteristics of what an entrepreneur really is. An entrepreneur has the propensity to take risk. If you don't have the propensity to take risk, you shouldn't be in the business of starting a company. I think it's easier to go and work for someone and get a paycheck every month, and that's okay. I think if you go and go to any top schools in the world and try and get an MBA, or if you go even to colleges and universities here in Pakistan, professors like Shoaib will try to convince you and say that anyone can become an entrepreneur. I disagree. I don't think it's for everybody. I think that people who want to become entrepreneurs have a certain hunger, a certain drive, and they have a propensity to take higher amount of risk, and they want higher amount of reward. Now, if that is not your nature, it's very difficult to force yourself towards entrepreneurship. So that's one thing to keep in mind. Secondly, in terms of coming up with ideas, there may be ideas that are pertinent or applicable to the Pakistani market. And for that, I think we need to have local funds that can invest in these companies. It's very difficult to ask Silicon Valley-based investors to invest in a company whose market is primarily Pakistan or maybe South Asia, etc. What I've seen in my time in Silicon Valley is that if you look at the top venture capitalists, right? There's a road right next to Stanford University. It's called Sand Hill Road, right? That's where all the top venture capitalists reside and have their offices. If you look at these top venture capitalists, they're not investing in ideas that someone has already thought of. Okay? If you want to become the next Amazon of Pakistan, if you want to start another social network, they're not going to be really the ones that will be the investors that you need to approach. What they're looking for are ideas that are incredibly disruptive. Okay? They're looking to invest in things that are going to change the world, right? And they might get, out of 10 investments, they might get one right. But that's their business. They're looking for people who are extremely innovative and creative about thinking of changing the world, right? It's not about just going out there and starting a small technology company and catering to a small market, which is fine. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think there are tremendous opportunities here in Pakistan to be able to do it. But companies here tend to think that they can reach out to top-tier venture capitalists, around the world. But frankly, that's very difficult to do unless you have a top-tier idea, unless that idea is so incredibly revolutionary that it can become a $100, $200 billion company. It becomes very, very difficult to entice investors to come and invest. But having said that, I think there are tremendous opportunities here in Pakistan, and we can discuss that as we go along.
That's absolutely right. That entrepreneurship is certainly not for everybody, as long as one is not willing to